Michelle had been dancing alone in the grand hall for maybe 2 minutes when she felt it. That electric shift in the air that meant she wasn't alone anymore. She kept moving anyway. After a year of making herself invisible in Dominic Rhodes' mansion, being seen felt dangerously inevitable. Bring her to my office. The command cut through the silence like a blade through silk. Michelle's body froze mid-turn, her arms still raised in the graceful arc of a ballet position she hadn't practiced in 3 years. The feather duster in her right hand trembled. The grand hall, all 3,000 square feet of Italian marble and crystal chandeliers, suddenly felt suffocatingly small. Michelle's eyes darted to the arched doorway where Dominic Rhodes stood, half shrouded in shadow. 31 years old. 6 feet of controlled violence wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. Tattoos crawled up his neck like dark secrets, disappearing beneath his collar. His face was carved from stone, sharp jawline, dark eyes that missed nothing, expression unreadable. He was the kind of man who never repeated himself. The kind who never had to. The kind whose silence was more terrifying than other men's threats. And he'd been watching her dance. Michelle's heart slammed against her ribs. She stood frozen in the center of his ballroom, wearing the standard staff uniform. Black dress with white apron, sensible non-slip shoes, hair that should have been pinned back in regulation severity but had come loose during her dancing. Dark curls framed her face, making her look younger than 25. Vulnerable in a way she'd trained herself not to be. Sir, her voice cracked. She cleared her throat, forcing a steadiness she didn't feel. I was finishing the evening cleaning. The gala ended 3 hours ago, and I thought. I know what you thought. Dominic's voice was quiet, measured, each word precise as a surgeon's cut. You thought you were alone. Heat flooded Michelle's cheeks. She had thought that. For the past 13 months working in this sprawling estate, this palace of power and secrets, she had perfected the art of invisibility. Clean in silence. Keep your eyes down. Never draw attention. Never give them a reason to remember your face. But tonight, bone-tired from a double shift and suffocated by her own loneliness, she'd made a mistake. She'd found the portable speaker someone left in the staff break room. Connected her phone. Scrolled to the playlist she hadn't touched in 3 years, the one labeled before everything fell apart. And when the music started, something inside her had cracked open. Her body had remembered what her mind tried to forget. The turns. The extensions. The way ballet had once made her feel limitless, powerful, free. For 2 minutes, maybe 3, Michelle Clark had stopped being invisible. And Dominic Rhodes had been watching from the shadows. Behind him, Marcus, his head of security, a mountain of muscle in an expensive suit, shifted his weight. Waiting for orders. Marcus. Dominic didn't turn, didn't take his dark eyes off Michelle. Escort Miss Clark to my office. Yes, sir. The words hit Michelle like ice water. Her legs felt unstable. She set down the feather duster with shaking hands, smoothed her apron in a useless gesture, and followed Marcus across the gleaming marble floor. Each footstep echoed in the cavernous space. Each breath felt too loud. Her mind spun through worst-case scenarios like a roulette wheel of disaster. Had she broken some protocol about staff using equipment? Was dancing considered inappropriate? Would she be fired? She needed this job. Desperately. The salary was better than the 3 part-time positions she'd juggled before this. The staff housing in the estate's guest wing saved her $800 a month in rent. And the money she sent to her younger sister every week, Kayla's community college tuition, her groceries, her textbooks, all of it depended on Michelle keeping her head down and staying employed. But she had danced. And he had seen her. If you're enjoying this story of transformation, power, and forbidden attraction, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss what happens when Michelle enters Dominic's office. Trust me, what he says next will change everything. The walk through the mansion's corridors felt endless. Past oil paintings worth more than Michelle would earn in a lifetime. Past marble sculptures that belonged in museums. Past doors leading to rooms she'd never seen because cleaners weren't allowed in the private wings. Everything screamed the kind of wealth that reminded her she didn't belong here, would never belong here, no matter how well she scrubbed the floors. Marcus stopped outside a set of double doors, dark mahogany carved with intricate patterns that probably had some historical significance Michelle would never know. He knocked once, a sharp rap of knuckles against wood, then pushed them open. "Inside," he said. Not unkind, but absolute. Michelle stepped through. The door clicked shut behind her like a prison cell locking. Dominic's office was exactly what she'd expected and somehow more intimidating in person. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate's manicured grounds, currently black with night. A desk the size of a small car, made from wood so dark it looked like polished midnight. Leather chairs that probably cost more than her car, back when she'd had a car. Built-in bookshelves lined with volumes that looked read, not decorative. And behind the desk, silhouetted against the window like a portrait of power, stood Dominic Rode. "Leave us," he said without turning. Michelle heard Marcus exit, heard the door close with a finality that made her skin prickle. She stood in the center of the room, hands clasped in front of her apron, trying not to shake, trying to breathe. Dominic turned slowly, deliberately. He didn't sit. Instead, he moved around the desk with the controlled grace of a predator, leaning against the front edge, arms crossed, studying her with an intensity that made every nerve ending in her body light up with warning signals. "How long have you worked here, Michelle?" She blinked. He knew her name. Of course he knew her name. He signed the paychecks. But hearing it in his voice, low and smooth as aged whiskey, made something tighten in her chest. 13 months, sir. And in those 13 months, have I ever spoken to you directly? No, sir. A pause. His dark eyes never left hers. Do you know why? Michelle swallowed hard. Staff protocol. You prefer minimal interaction with. Because I don't see them. His voice cut through hers effortlessly. The cleaners, the cooks, the drivers. They're part of the machinery that keeps this estate running, but I don't see them. They're invisible by design. That's how my household operates. Her throat tightened. She knew this. Had known it from day one. Invisibility was safety. Invisibility was survival in a world where the rich and powerful could crush you without even noticing. But tonight, Dominic continued, his gaze locked on hers like a physical touch. I saw you. The words hung in the air between them. Heavy. Dangerous. Loaded with meaning Michelle didn't dare interpret. I saw you dance like you were fighting your way back to something you lost. Like you were trying to remember who you used to be before life beat it out of you. He tilted his head slightly, a gesture that was somehow both curious and predatory. Who were you, Michelle? Before you became invisible. The question knocked the air from her lungs. Her hands clenched tighter, nails digging into her palms. She wanted to lie, to deflect, to stay small and safe and forgettable. But something in his gaze wouldn't let her. I was a ballet student, she whispered, the words scraping her throat raw. Full scholarship at the Manhattan Academy of Performing Arts. I was ranked 3rd in my class. I had professional companies scouting me. Her voice cracked. I had a future. What happened? My mother. The words came out bitter. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed 3 weeks before my final showcase. She didn't have insurance. The bills started piling up before we even understood what was happening. Michelle's jaw tightened. So I made a choice. I dropped out. Took care of her. Worked 3 jobs to pay for treatments that didn't work. She died 6 months later, leaving me with $73,000 in medical debt and a 15-year-old sister I'd promised I would put through school. She lifted her chin, defiant despite the tears burning behind her eyes. So I cleaned houses. I waited tables. I swallowed every humiliation and learned to be invisible because invisibility pays bills and keeps promises. Silence stretched between them like a living thing. Dominic's expression hadn't changed. That stone-carved control never cracked, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or understanding. Or something darker she couldn't name. You're not invisible anymore, he said quietly. Michelle's heart stuttered. Sir, I apologize if my behavior was. Don't. The single word was soft but carried the weight of absolute command. Don't apologize for being seen. Don't apologize for being extraordinary when everyone else has spent a year trying to convince you you're nothing. He pushed off the desk, closing the distance between them in 3 measured steps. Too close. Closer than any employer should stand to an employee. Michelle could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated with an edge of cedar and danger. I have a proposition for you, Dominic said, his voice low enough that she had to strain to hear it. Your current position is a waste of your talents. I need someone with your particular skills. Michelle's pulse hammered in her throat. My skills. I clean floors and dust chandeliers. No. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You observe. You remember. You move through rooms without being noticed, until you choose otherwise. You have the discipline of someone who trained their body to do impossible things, and you're smart enough to survive 3 years of hell without breaking. He paused, letting his words sink in. Starting tomorrow, you'll report directly to me. Administrative duties. Light work. But you'll be close. You'll see things. Hear things. And when I need you to remember what you've seen and heard. Another pause, deliberate and heavy. You'll tell me everything. Alarm bells screamed in Michelle's mind. This wasn't a promotion. This was recruitment. This was danger wrapped in opportunity. What exactly would I be observing? She asked carefully. Everything. Everyone. Dominic's eyes held hers. I have enemies, Michelle. People who smile at my galas and plot my destruction over champagne. People who've infiltrated my staff, my business. Maybe even this household. I need someone invisible who can become visible when it matters. Someone no one would suspect. You mean you need a spy? I mean I need someone I can trust. And right now, you're the only person in this mansion who has nothing to gain by betraying me. He stepped even closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. You don't want power. You don't want status. You just want to survive. That makes you valuable. Michelle's breath caught. He was right. All of it. And if I refuse? You won't. His certainty was unshakable. Because you need this job. Because your sister needs you. And because... He leaned in, his lips close enough to her ear that she felt his breath on her skin. Because tonight, when you were dancing, you felt something you haven't felt in 3 years. Freedom. And I'm offering you more of it. Michelle's hands trembled. She wanted to argue. Wanted to run. Wanted to tell him he was wrong about her. But he wasn't. For 2 minutes tonight, dancing alone in his ballroom, she'd felt alive. She'd felt like herself. Like the Michelle who'd had dreams bigger than survival, who'd moved across stages like she owned them, who'd believed she could be extraordinary. And Dominic Road had seen that Michelle. Had recognized her when no one else had bothered to look. Tomorrow, Dominic said, stepping back and returning to his desk as if the conversation was already concluded. 8 a.m. Don't be late. Marcus will show you to your new quarters in the main house. Michelle stood frozen. Her new quarters. In the main house. Not the staff wing. Sir. And Michelle. He looked up from the papers on his desk, his dark eyes pinning her in place. Don't hide from me again. It wasn't a request. It was a command. A warning. A promise. Michelle nodded once, turned on unsteady legs, and walked to the door. Her hand touched the handle when his voice stopped her one more time. You were magnificent tonight. When you danced. His voice was quieter now, almost thoughtful. Don't forget that. What Michelle didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Dominic Road had been looking for her for 3 years. He'd seen her once before, at a charity gala where scholarship students from the Manhattan Academy had performed. A young dancer whose grace had stopped him cold in a way nothing had in years. He'd tried to find her afterward, asked questions, made inquiries. But she'd vanished like smoke. Now she was here, cleaning his floors. Invisible to everyone but him. And Dominic Road was a man who always got what he wanted. What neither of them knew was that Michelle's hiring had been no accident. Someone else had been watching her. Someone who knew about her past, her debt, her desperation. Someone who'd arranged for her application to reach the top of the pile, who'd made sure she got the job, who'd been waiting for exactly the right moment to use her. A rival family planning Dominic's downfall had planted Michelle Clark in his mansion like a sleeper agent. They just hadn't counted on Dominic seeing her first. And they definitely hadn't counted on Michelle Clark. Former ballet prodigy, invisible survivor, woman with nothing left to lose, becoming the most dangerous weapon neither side saw coming. Because the thing about people who've learned to be invisible? They see everything. And Michelle had been watching Dominic Rhodes' world far more carefully than anyone realized. Subscribe now to find out what happens when Michelle steps into Dominic's dangerous world and discovers that the man who saw her dancing knows far more about her past than he's letting on. New chapters drop every week. Michelle's transformation began in darkness. 4:17 a.m. The mansion slept. She didn't. For 2 months, she moved through Dominic's estate like a ghost with purpose. The private gym on the east wing, empty at dawn, equipment gleaming and used. She ran the treadmill until her lungs burned. Lifted weights that made her muscles scream. Stretched until her body remembered positions it had forgotten. Midnight. The indoor pool. Black water reflecting nothing. She swam laps in silence, rebuilding the endurance she'd lost to grief and exhaustion. Her body, naturally athletic beneath 3 years of survival weight, began responding. Muscles emerged. Movement became fluid again. The uniform that once swallowed her frame started fitting differently, clinging to curves she'd forgotten she had. Michelle told no one. This wasn't about them. Dominic noticed everything. The way Michelle moved through his halls changed. Shoulders back, chin higher, steps lighter. She carried cleaning supplies like they weighed nothing. One evening, passing the library, he caught her reflection in the window. Dancing while dusting shelves, movements hauntingly graceful. Something tightened in his chest. Curiosity. Attraction. Something he hadn't felt in years. He made calls. Pulled records. Manhattan Academy of Performing Arts. Full scholarship. Ranked 3rd. Then nothing. Dropout status. No forwarding information. He dug deeper. Hospital bills. A mother's death certificate. A sister enrolled at community college. Tuition paid in cash installments. Everything clicked into place. Sir. Marcus entered his office. Face grim. The Castellanos. They're moving during the New Year's gala. We have confirmation. Dominic should have focused on the threat. The rival family planning his downfall. Instead, his mind stayed on Michelle Clark. The maid who refused to quit. The woman he couldn't stop watching. Drop a like if you're already rooting for Michelle. The next scene is where everything explodes. Literally. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. The Arrival. The New Year's Gala blazed with excess. 300 guests, politicians, business moguls, criminals in tailored suits, filled the grand hall where Michelle had once stood humiliated. Champagne flowed. Diamonds glittered. Power circulated like currency. Dominic moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands, reading faces, identifying threats. The Castellanos were here somewhere, smiling while plotting his destruction. He'd forgotten about the dress joke entirely. 10:47 p.m. The hall doors opened. Conversation didn't just pause. It died. Michelle entered. The vintage Valentino gown fit like it had been designed for her body. Midnight blue silk hugged curves sculpted through 2 months of savage discipline. Her natural curls cascaded in elegant waves. Her walk was pure dancer. Fluid, controlled, devastating. She wasn't just beautiful. She was magnificent. Powerful. Impossible to ignore. Dominic turned and froze. His mind went blank. Completely, utterly blank. Michelle crossed the marble floor, every eye tracking her movement. She stopped directly in front of him, chin high, dark eyes fearless. "I believe you made me a promise," she said clearly. Nearby guests leaned closer. Cell phones rose. "I'm here to collect." For the first time in a decade, Dominic Rode had absolutely no idea what to say. Comment: YSSS Michelle if you're living for this moment. Hit subscribe. The next scene is pure fire. Dominic's control snapped back like a rubber band. But something in Michelle's eyes, fearless, challenging, alive, intrigued him dangerously. The crowd pressed closer. Phones recording. Whispers spreading like wildfire. He was trapped. His reputation was built on keeping promises, on being a man of his word in a world of liars. He stepped closer, voice low enough only she could hear. You've made your point. The joke is over. This isn't a joke. Michelle's voice rang clear. You made an offer in front of witnesses. I fulfilled the condition. Now the world is watching what kind of man you really are. One who keeps his word or a coward who mocks people beneath him. Brilliant. She'd maneuvered him perfectly. If he refused, his honor, the only currency that mattered in his world, crumbled. If he accepted, he was bound to a woman far more dangerous than he'd anticipated. Dominic felt something snap inside him. The same thing that broke when he'd watched her dance alone. He took her hand. Her skin was warm, steady. 1 month, he announced, his voice carrying across the silent hall. You'll stay here as my guest. Then we'll discuss terms. Michelle's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected him to agree. Neither had his enemies. Across the room, a man in a gray suit smiled and lifted his phone. Target acquired. Like if your heart is racing. Subscribe now. The next part of this story brings danger, truth, and the moment everything changes forever. The month changed everything. Michelle moved into the guest wing. What began as a power play became something neither anticipated. She was intelligent, observant, unimpressed by wealth. Dominic was more than a criminal, a man trapped by legacy, protecting people she'd never known existed. They talked. Late nights in his study. Early mornings over coffee. Guards dropped. 2 weeks in, the Castellanos struck. 3 men. A black van. Michelle dragged from the gardens at dusk. But they underestimated her. Ballet training meant balance, agility, spatial awareness. When the van stopped, Michelle moved. Pivoting, striking, using her captor's weight against him. She escaped into the woods, bloody but running, buying time. Dominic's men found her first. He arrived to find Michelle standing, face streaked with blood, breathing hard but unbroken. Something in his chest shattered. Later, in the safety of his office, barriers crumbled. I noticed you the first week you worked here, Dominic confessed quietly. Watching you dance when you thought you were alone, it broke something in me. I came back for revenge, Michelle whispered. But somewhere along the way, I saw the man behind the monster. Dominic offered her freedom, money, safety, a new life. Michelle chose to stay. Not as a prize but as an equal. The dress hung in their bedroom, a reminder that transformation isn't about fitting in. It's about claiming the space you deserve. If this story moved you, subscribe for more tales of transformation and power. Drop a comment telling us your favorite moment. Next story drops soon.